some more.
Yo, what's good, people? Izzy Max here, back again with the crew for the Season 2 Week 1 Breakdown. What's up, guys?
Hey, not too much.
Heyo.
I love our boy Crawdont. I'm glad he's getting represented this week.
Heck yeah, these three mons are undrafted and not used. Week 1 was pretty fire. There was actually a lot of upset wins. So without further ado, we're just going to go ahead and jump right into the first one. We're not going to have too much to say about these first two matches because these are the only two that didn't get recorded. So all we have is their spreads. But Ryan, since you have those pulled up, I'll let you start with this one.
Yeah, so first match was Noah and Burst. Generally speaking, sets were not too crazy or out of the ordinary. There's a couple like item choices that I think are pretty nice. You got a Koba Berry on the Zapdos on Noah's side. You also have it's actually a lot of berry usage going around. You got Ogwav Berry Salamence, you got Rindo Berry Gastrodon, you got Citrus Rotom Heat, which I think is pretty standard. And then Morgrem was Light Clay, but probably didn't make the field because it didn't have any kills or deaths, if I'm recalling correctly. On Burst side, we have AP Cart, Light Clay Orbeetle, Focus Sash, Mienshao, Noke. It was Detect, Close Combat, Fake Out Coaching, which is the set I like to run when I run Mienshao. Figgy Berry Ensign, Lefty Swampert I think is kind of interesting, but I like it. With some kind of nice tech there with Ice Punch, presumably for Salamence, and a Nidoking. That was a Life Orb Sheer Force Nidoking, with actually a pretty hefty amount of HP investment, like 188. Ice Beam, Sludge Bomb, Earth Power, Protect, which I would say that's a pretty standard Nidoking that you would see running around.
Yeah.
Overall, Noah's sets were a little bit different from maybe like what you would expect. It was very like bulkily built is the vibe I got. Lot of super effective berries. You got a lot of but you didn't have screen support for a lot of that too, which I find really interesting. We can see from the kills that T-Tar kind of went in, which isn't super surprising considering the team comp. I'm curious what Burst was going for on his team. I would assume coaching Mienshao into Cart was the idea, but you also want to fake out with Mienshao, and I think that might have been the problem, because I think that Burst's team might have actually been almost too frail, weirdly enough, because everything kind of got hit pretty hard by like Gastrodon T-Tar, like hit everything pretty hard, and so did Zapdos. So I think we can kind of even see that in the KD.
Yeah, one thing I'm actually surprised looking at it, since Burst did lose, and it's looking like, yeah, it didn't go to 3, Nidoking never hit the floor.
Yeah, more than likely.
And I think outside...
I was actually...
Yeah, go ahead.
I was surprised. I was surprised by that at first too, mostly because you see Nidoking has just such good coverage across the board. It can hit so many things super effectively. But given what Noah brought to the battle, I think it makes more sense that Nidoking stayed on the field. It's not getting any super effective hits against anything with its stab attacks, except for the Morgrem. Which is
well,
not that big of a deal, and
T-Tar.
then of course Ice Beam for Salamence.
Oh, T-Tar's good.
Oh right,
you can Earth Power T-Tar, and you can Ice Beam Salamence and Zapdos.
It has Ice Beam for Zapdos
potentially. No, actually, I think
Okay.
Nidoking not. I think the reason Nidoking didn't hit the field,
speed.
I would need to confirm speed tiers, but if he has 188 investment in his modest Nidoking into HP, then he probably wasn't fast enough to utilize it very well. He didn't have the speed support.
Yeah, I can kind of...
that.
Go ahead, Matt.
Oh no, I'm good. Go ahead.
Oh, I can kind of see... I wish we would have watched this, but I can kind of see maybe him trying to go for like a Trick Room kind of setup with the Swampert, Ensign, and maybe this is a slow Nidoking. but
Mhm.
I mean that would have matched up
Yeah, it could
decently
be.
well.
I mean, that would be a little bit awkward because Nidoking doesn't have the slowest base speed, and it's still going to get undersped by both the
Gastrodon and
Tyranitar and the
Scizor.
Gastrodon.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think looking at this matchup on paper, I wouldn't say I'm surprised that Noah won, but I am surprised at how much of a blowout this game seemed to have been.
Yeah, agreed. I would have expected it to be a lot closer.
Yeah, and I think it actually, where we're lacking with our commentary on this one is just us not being able to watch. Because for all we know, Noah could have been running this busted Zapdos and just been getting like huge high rolls or getting a bunch of flinches with a super fast T-Tar, or we don't know. But
we also know that I do think it's odd of Burst to bring Incineroar against this comp, because we see Incineroar has 1 death and we see Zapdos has 2 KOs, so I don't know if Intimidate procced on it or not. But Noah has that's a pretty strong. I would not Intimidate against Noah's team is good if you're worried about the Salamence and T-Tar, but I feel like Burst had pretty okay ways of dealing with either of those threats, either with Nidoking or Swampert. So I'm not 100% sure why Incin came almost. I also just think the matchup for it wasn't very good. I mean, it's hit by everything except for Mence for super effective damage that Noah brought, which is a hindsight 2020 thing.
Right.
But even still, on paper, I looked at the matchup and I thought Incineroar wasn't very good just in general against the entire draft.
Yeah,
that Noah had.
Yeah, and you have to think, if you're worried about Noah maybe setting Sand, he does have the Doug Trio and the Kling Clang. I know Kling Clang doesn't really take advantage of it, but he could have been prepping for maybe a Sand Core.
Yeah, that's true.
I'm pretty much done with this. The league did vote for Burst. This is going to be one of many upsets this week.
Yep.
So, and with Burst setup, we'll get to transactions like we do every week, but I think his transaction would have helped with this matchup a lot.
A lot. Yeah, agreed.
Yeah, so next up, we have Dark and Toxic. I'll actually take this one. I did watch it live. I don't have the spreads in front of me.
But I have them handy if you need me to reference them.
Yeah, so if you look, that Moltres over there has 6 kills and 0 deaths. It was a pain in the butt. He put it right next to, I think you got this wrong. He had a follow me. Oh, there it is, Tangrowth. Never mind, I didn't see it.
He had Rage Powder on
Yeah,
Tangrowth.
he had Rage Powder right next to the Zapdos, and in both games, or Zapdos, the Moltres, in both games, Moltres was able to just to set up a nasty plot and then just start clicking Max Airstream. And Dark didn't really have a way to deal with it because it was weakness policy, and he knew it. He knew based on what he brought that thing was going to be weakness policy. So you can't really proc it with Alecki because his Alecki didn't have too much special attack investment this week. You don't want to Strange Steam it because it ain't going to do any damage. And Ice Punch is the only closest thing you can do to it, but it's going to be redirected into the Tangrowth, and then you're going to be taking 2 hits from the Moltres. So it kind of sucks to see where this matchup went, but I really do think Moltres is the kryptonite to Dark's team.
Yeah, it had a great matchup. Also, I gotta commend Toxic for Tangrowth Moltres lead is really good and really intuitive prep on his part. I think that was really smart.
Yeah, I think if Dark would have put 5 more minutes into his prepping, he would have realized that he might need to put safety goggles on the Regigigas.
Yeah,
because that would have turned the match completely on its head. But yeah, I mean that's an oversight a lot of people would make because they're not initially thinking, oh, Regigigas,
right?
Safety goggles.
And this is week 1 too, so people are kind of revealing their strats that they have in mind for their team. So I think surprise factor is a big thing, especially in the first few weeks of these kind of drafts. And we kind of saw that happen here, where Toxic really got a nice surprise factor on Dark.
Oh, Matt.
Yep, Matt.
Can you guys hear me?
Yep, there you are.
Yeah, there you are. Okay.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that. Yeah, I think you guys pretty much covered everything. I'm mostly just wondering what kind of his game plan was darks going into this game, like against the Moltres. The Regieleki can help, but it's just you really have to take into account that weakness policy set on Moltres, and Regieleki by itself is not going to be enough to deal with it, considering how especially bulky the Moltres is. I do agree. I think the safety goggles on Regigigas idea is probably not very intuitive, but it would have done very well here.
Yeah, especially since I know his coverage moves were Ice Punch on the Gigas, Ice Beam on the Inteleon, Strange Seam, and then Electric coverage on the Eleki. So he had enough coverage, he just didn't have a way to kill it while it was maxed, while being effective.
And even then, like I think if he had gone for the safety goggles, I think the play is to go for the max strikes instead of the max hailstorms. Number one, to avoid proccing the weakness policy, because I don't think you're going to be able to one-shot with just a max hailstorm, especially not without a life orb. Right. And also the max strikes can mitigate the speed boosts that Moltres is going to get from the max air streams.
Yeah.
Well,
and it'll keep your Regigigas faster. So.
Yeah, game one I could have seen going for the max ice, because you would have broken the sash on the Tangrowth, and like I said, Moltres was just sitting there clicking Nasty Plot every turn one, both games. It just sat there and clicked Nasty Plot. So
yeah, and especially like if it's not Dynamax that first turn, it's just going for Nasty Plot. Then you can get a huge hit off against that Moltres. If I think I would imagine a max hailstorm, even without life orb, probably KOs it if it's not Dynamax.
Yeah, I mean, other than that, watching the game, Dark didn't make any mistakes. He just really got put in a pickle, like straight up.
Yeah,
because turn one he always killed the Tangrowth, but at that time it was too late.
Right.
Other than that, Toxic needs to watch out for safety goggles. I'm going to say that now. Since we've already talked about it now, safety goggles is going to be an issue, because once people actually get to watch a match and see what he's doing, he's going to need to think of some better stuff. So,
yeah, it's something you really have to consider when you're going up against any team that has Rage Powder without Follow Me.
Yep. So next up, we start getting into the games we actually watched, and man, was this one a doozy. Matt, I'll go ahead and let you take this one, since I know you're a fan of the Ice Horse.
Oh, really? What gave it away? Yeah, it's
nothing. Nothing at all.
Yeah. Ice Horse just did what it does. It kind of the same deal as the last game, except we actually got to watch this one. Ice Horse got 6 kills, and Hunter won 2-0 with it. So again, I'm not really kind of like this sort of reminds me of Dark King going up against Moltres. I'm not really sure what Tay's game plan was against the Glastrier, because again, you really have to take into account that weakness policy. So the non-stab fire moves on like Zapdos and Zoroark are not typically going to cut it. Maybe if he had brought out Bronzong, I know he Dynamaxed Bronzong at one point, went for Steel Spikes. Maybe if he did that earlier and was like hitting into Glastrier's partner to avoid proccing the weakness policy, that might have done it, just to mitigate the damage with those Steel Spike defense boosts. But yeah, nothing like that really came out well enough to stop the Glastrier from doing what it does.
No, and I'll tell you now, mid-match, Tay literally said, "Why did we not put body press on Bronzong?" If Tay had body press, game 2 is in Tay's favor.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
Going forward, because
I was going to mention that.
Yeah,
even.
I talked to Hunter after the match, and I said, if you had any other tier 1 Mon other than Ice Horse, Tay runs away with this game.
Yeah,
Tay played very well, and if you look at this and you see Zoroark, 0 kills and 2 deaths, that does not tell you how well he actually had Zoroark placed in every game.
Yeah, Zoroark was placed really well. I like the Mr. Rhyme usage quite a bit, too.
Yep.
Mr. Rhyme's kind of a tougher Mon to use, and he used it real well. Yeah, I think it was honestly a bit of just a prepping error on Tay's part. I think that, like,
I think
when you
he
play Hunter,
underestimated how important Glacier, or how bulky Glacier actually is.
really, that's what I think it boiled down to. Never Ice Horse. I've been saying it in chat, and I've said it in my real life. Ice Horse is a problem. Don't sleep on Ice Horse. It
No.
will just completely crush your dreams.
And like I said, watching Tay's gameplay, I don't think he made any actual mistakes play-wise. I do think some of his prepping could have been a little bit of an oversight. But other than that, he played phenomenally. He just got stuck behind Ice Horse.
Yeah, which has happened a couple times.
Yeah. And
I think it's also worth mentioning that the water type Silvally did a lot of work here as well.
Yep, I was getting ready to bring that up. Silvally was
Yeah.
the underestimated MVP of this match.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, kind of gets overshadowed by how much work the Ice Horse did, because that thing just swept, twice in a row. But yeah, the Silvally between the especially with the Snarl tech and I think Parting Shot came out once or twice.
Yeah, it really
did a good job
neutered
of
the
mitigating
Bronzong. Yeah.
Yeah.
One prop I do want to give Tay is game 1 calling out the Protect from the Fungus. That was huge. And I just wanted to kind of give him props on that. That was a good read. And yeah, if you guys have anything else to say, we'll go ahead and move on. I think all three of these games were upsets. So starting week 1 off great. So our next one is HubNin, the first game that the league actually predicted correctly. Before I go into this, I am going to preface this by kind of talking to Nin through this recording. If your 2 main strategies get shut down by Togetic and Togedemaru, you might want to reevaluate. What you brought would have been fine against anybody else. I'm going to straight up say that now. If they don't have a Follow Me user, Palisana Selgor literally goes in. If they don't have a Lightning Rod user, Pincurchin and Scarf Xurkitree is what you had, goes in. But against this team, that was not it. And you can see here, Lapras, Mimikyu, and Dragonite all really went in. And Togetic got a kill. Took last season Togetic all the way to the final game to start getting a kill, but it finally got a kill in game 1. Other than that, I think Hub just really had a solid game. Didn't make any mistakes. Didn't let Nin kind of take advantage of what she had. And I don't think she made a mistake. Like I said, I don't think she let Nin do what he wanted to do.
Yeah, no, I agree wholeheartely. We also have the paste for Nin's team. And there's just a couple things I want to mention there that kind of stuck out to me. The Acceligor was Throat Spray on Burden, which is kind of strange because I feel like you're always clicking Water Shuriken, and if you want to live to turn 2, you should have a Focus Sash most of the time. Also, I don't see why you would have Throat Spray and also have Final Gambit on the same set. That doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Especially because he wasn't like max HP, max speed, which is what normally you do with an Acceligor that you want a Final Gambit.
Yep.
I also think Terrain Extender was on Pincurchin was a bit of a misplay, both because your opponent can change terrains with max moves, and because doubles games don't normally last to 8 turns.
No,
almost ever, and you can change the terrain back with your own Xurkitree Dynamaxing.
Yeah, I'll give him that one though, because if you look at Hub's team, she really doesn't have a good way of changing terrain outside of the Mimikyu, I guess.
Yeah, well, Mimikyu, and I'm pretty sure can't. Well, actually, no, because Lapras would only be able to do electric terrain.
Yeah, so I'll give him that one.
Fair enough. I still think it's not necessary though. Because I think that I think with 5 turns of electric terrain, you're picking up that same momentum. I think something like a Shukaberry or something, or an AV or something like that would have been a better call maybe on Pincurchin.
Yeah.
Those were the only like team building notes I have though. Otherwise, I think it was all pretty good. I actually like Scarf Xurkitree quite a bit here. The Lucha set was pretty good. I like the U-turn on Lucha too, especially because that lets you like kind of pivot out into your that can let you pivot out into like Palossand if you're worried about an electric type attack or something. So
yeah, like I don't think
all a Dynamax turn. So
I don't think his
like
prep was
there's some cool
bad.
stuff.
I think his prep was bad against Hub.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. What he brought would have, like I said,
Yeah,
would
I'd
have
agree
worked.
with that.
Yeah, would have worked against anybody else except Hub. Her 2 supportive Mons just shut down what he wants to do.
Yeah, shut down that team style.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
she really just had the tools to deal with everything he was trying to do without even really trying. It was just clicking follow me or switching into Togedemaru, whichever one you got to do is pretty much takes care of what Nin was trying to do. Two notes I'd also like to make. Ryan touched on the first one already, but yeah, if you're going to run Final Gambit on Excelgor, you generally want max HP, or since this is a draft league, you can tailor your HP stat to the things that you might want to be KOing with the Final Gambit. I also noticed the Togedemaru had King's Rock with the Iron Head and Zing Zap. It should be noted that King's Rock actually does not increase your flinch chance for moves that can already flinch. It can only add a 10% chance to moves that do not flinch.
okay, yeah. So
just for
that
future
one
reference.
was actually a showdown error. So in the first iteration of the team, it actually did have the King's Rock, and then she realized that and changed it to Focus Sash, and then saved it.
okay.
But by the time she started putting her Mons in game, it went back to King's Rock, and she never noticed and just didn't bother to change it.
Well, that's too bad. Well, at least it didn't. It didn't. Hurt
It
her
didn't
at all.
matter. No.
No.
But yeah, that's about it on this one. Kind of unfortunate. I look forward to what Nin can do later on, because I think this is literally the only team that can shut down both of his strategies.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, pretty much.
yeah, so like I said, I'm looking forward to what he can do. This one shouldn't get down on yourself for this one. But next up, we have Dan and Matt. So Matt, I'll let you go ahead and start this one off since you played it.
Fair enough. Yeah, I would definitely like some input from you guys as well. But yeah, this was
we're gonna get
I'm sure.
We
I'm
got
sure
it.
you will. It was definitely a very close match. I think it's the first one on. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think it's the first one on this list so far that made it to game 3.
Yes.
I believe so, because I think it's this match and the last one that were both game 3s.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think my prep going into this match was mostly on point.
Yeah, I'd agree.
My decision making was not. I definitely made a pretty decent amount of errors, especially in the games that I lost in particular. Obviously, the first game, I had a decent way of getting through the Trick Room mode against the Dynamax Araquanid. I figured that once the Araquanid was at low HP and it was at risk of getting KO'd by the Tornadus, he was just going to target down the threat. So I ended up switching it out, and he ended up going for a max move onto the Purloin instead. So I could have won that game if I just kept it in and ate a Psychic from the Musharna and then went for a Hurricane or a Sludge Bomb on the Spider.
Yep.
So that was a pretty big mistake. And then game 3, I kind of overthought my game plan. I think it would have been much better to just stick with Metagross, which worked out pretty well the first 2 games. I was mostly just afraid of him going back to the Feeble lead, which would not have been great for me. It kind of messed me up in the beginning of game 1, so I kind of overthought that a little bit and tried to go for the Nasty Flaw Dynamax Tornadus set up next to Clefable, and he outled me pretty hard. I was kind of overcommitted to it already, even though he had Landorus and Nihilego out on the field, and I just couldn't deal with it.
Yeah, so if you watched Dan's side of this video, this man is smart. Holy cow, he has his calcs down. He knows, just if you hear him in his commentary, he's like, if this happened, I'll know to do this next, or if this happens, I'll do this next game, and for sure get the KO because this bulk means this. And I was like, oh my god. So definitely don't underestimate anything from Dan. He is very methodical. He is the new Johnny, I guess. Shout out to my boy for missing this season.
I miss Johnny.
But-
I hopefully lived up to some of his spirit in our match, Maxwell, which we'll get to. But
yeah, holy cow, he had some good numbers on his end. And yeah, Matt, I honestly do think some of your mistakes kind of cost you. Granted, the Tornadus one was huge. I do think you win that one if you don't switch out. But I don't really know what he was thinking. Because if I was in his shoes, I'm targeting the Tornadus. The Tornadus was your win con. That thing needed to go. But in hindsight, I get it because he knew Musharna couldn't actually touch the Purloin. So
right.
Yeah.
Which is so smart. It's so funny to me. I love it. I actually really got to compliment Dan too on prep. I love how he built his team this week. I genuinely tip my hat to Trick Room, Rock Tomb, Musharna into Araquanid. Like, that's like crazy. I love that kind of stuff. And he really just prepped really well, and I think he placed his mons in really good spots to give himself. I think Matt, you were constantly pressured on your turn, is a good way to put it. Dan was really good at applying pressure to your turn. He always made you like have difficult calls to make, essentially, and he was really aggressive in trying to like get himself placed in the right spot. And I really got to compliment Dan on that. That was a really excellent like match on both players' end.
So
I think this was
one thing,
one of the best of the week, if not the best.
One more thing I want to bring up. I don't think we talked about it in the preseason breakdown, but we weren't too confident in Thievel, and holy cow, was I wrong. Thievel actually did a lot of work.
Yeah,
even though it didn't
agreed.
get any kills, it really put the pressure on Metagross.
Yeah, Thievel has officially grown on me slightly, I gotta say.
Yeah, it definitely threw a big wrench in my plans. That's the one mon he brought that I didn't really consider as much as I should have in my prep. I was also surprised to see that he didn't bring Rain, because I felt like Rain was very, very good against a lot of the stuff I had.
Mm-hmm.
His Rain mode was actually the main reason I drafted the Purloin at the end, because if I didn't have that Prankster Sunny Day, I felt like the Rain matchup was almost an auto loss. So I mean it's but despite that, I'm gonna be keeping it around. It's gonna be useful for all kinds of stuff. So
yeah, and shout out to Marowak, dude. That thing put in some work.
Love Marowak.
Yeah, I'm very pleased with that thing. I'm happy to have it.
All right, so our last match, if you guys haven't already noticed, it's me and Ryan. Unlike how we let Matt talk about his game first, I'm going to let Matt talk first about this one so me and Ryan can figure out what we're going to say.
I know what I'm going to say.
Frankly, I was surprised that Maxwell, you went with the Blastoise setup. It turned out to be good against this team, obviously, but I don't know. For me, I would have been too afraid to do that against a Rillaboom and a Raikou, and especially against a potential water absorbed Seismitoad. It turned out to be Ryan went with Swift Swim this time.
I went Swift Swim for Bulu, actually.
Right, and I think that I love this game a lot because it was like we said, this is the only other game that went to game 3, and for good reason. There was a lot of good back and forth. I think you both probably did what was best against the other player in terms of your prep and game plan. It could have gone either way, but watching the way that the match played out, it makes sense that it went the way that it did. Blastoise turned out to have a much better matchup than I would have otherwise thought.
Yeah.
Also, props to Ryan for not running Prankster against the Psychic Terrain in Edie.
Props to me for calling it out.
Wasn't even phased. I was livid. Livid, I tell you.
Oh man, Ryan, I'll go ahead and let you go.
Okay, yeah, so this matchup was my first matchup for the league. I'm pretty happy with it mostly. Yeah, you actually wouldn't think that Blastoise was a problem, but when I was doing prep for the week, the numbers on Blastoise were insane. It was like I couldn't one-hit KO it with like Max Overgrowth from Rillaboom, and and even with Yachtberry, I still died to like Max Hailstorm at +2. It was bad. So no, the math was not in my favor there on that, and I knew it would be a problem going into the match. I feel like I kind of tossed it game 3 a little bit. I'm comfortable with my game 1. I think I played game 2 great, and I am especially proud that I got to win my first game of the doubles draft league with a Hyper Beam.
Freaking Hyper Beam.
That was probably going to be my peak of the season, if I'm being honest. And then game 3, I feel like I tossed a little bit. I thought I had to go a little bit more aggressive with the Raikou Seismitoad, forgetting that like that would basically put me over. I should have gone Rillaboom Blim, and I think had I done that, it would have been hard to win, but I think I could have.
Yeah, yeah. So that's actually something I pointed out to you after the match, and you're like, "Well,
yeah,
damn."
Yeah, it just kind of was what it was. But no, it was a fun first week. Maxwell and I, after the video, we talked for a while, and then after the video was done recording, we talked for a while, and it's wild. We both know each other way too well, so it was kind of a hot mess when we were discussing prep even after the video was over. Maxwell like deleted half his team.
Yep. Yeah, so behind the scenes for me, I had a first draft. I said, all right, this team looks good against what he has. And then I said, all right, what would Ryan expect me to actually bring? So for those of you who don't know, Ryan is basically my front office for any time I do any other league.
Yeah.
So we know how each other preps. And that was my initial game plan. Like, initially, I didn't have Frostmoth, Bulu, or even I think Thunderous, and I was just like, nah, Ryan will expect all that, so let's change it up. And Blastoise initially wasn't my offensive threat. I was initially bringing Colossal, and I figured he would have seen that, especially since Togekiss had the Charty, which I thought was kind of cool. But game 3 really. I was put into a situation where I said, okay, Blastoise and Didi is probably my best lead against what he has. It can do the most offensive pressure. I was 100% expecting him to lead with Drift Blim blank, because Icy Wind would reset my White Herb, and then I would just be a very frail offensive Blastoise. Luckily, he didn't do that. And I think that really just gave me the game straight out the gate.
Yeah, if I hadn't, then I think it would have been different. But no, it was a good set. I'm glad to be in the league now. It was definitely not what I wanted week 1 in terms of that I had to play you.
Same.
I wish I had played literally anyone else. Just because I feel like if this game had happened later in the season, we both would have played very differently.
Mm-hmm.
But no, it was a good time.
Yep. So moving on to transactions. Starting from the bottom, I think Burst won the transactions. Cresselia for Latios, I think, is just a straight upgrade for his team. Cresselia is bulky and does set Trick Room, but Latios also does that, but does a lot more and can be a little more offensive than Cresselia. I think that one's just a win.
Yeah, and he needed a Dragon type. He said something interesting in the chat. It was like, I'm not sold on Dragon types, and I was like, but Dragon Steel Fairy Cores, like, my man, like he has a really good team for that mon, I think.
Yeah, I think Latios is just a strict upgrade. Matt, why are you dropping Sneasel for Bolton?
Honestly, I didn't really expect to make a transaction this week. I think that Bolton was just something that for some reason was not really on my radar during the draft, and I figured, I went into the transactions kind of thinking like, I don't think I'm going to pick up anything, but let's look over the tier list just in case. Mm-hmm. And as I was scanning over all the mons, I noticed Bolton, and I also I had also thought that I might need a good electric type to help tie the team together a little bit more. And I looked through Bolton, saw what it can do, and decided that it was more valuable than Sneasel. It's still it's kind of around the same speed tier, a little bit faster actually, so that's nice. I feel like Sneasel wasn't. I don't feel like Bolton really solved all of the problems for my draft, but it definitely it ties it together a lot better than Sneasel does.
Yeah,
And
you
I've got some pretty significant plans for it.
you definitely have the if you bring Intimidate against me, you're a dummy
Yeah,
team.
competitive on 2
Yeah.
mons, clear body, inner focus. But I'm gonna do it anyway. So speaking of which, Bolton, I do actually like Sneasel on your comp though. I'm wondering if you'll maybe ever take it back. I also don't know. Do you get a strong jaw boost when you are Dynamaxed or not?
No.
I don't think
No.
you do. I think it's like sheer force. Yeah. Okay. So worth noting. If you're someone who has to do calcs, remember that if he's Dynamaxed, that strong jaw's not coming into play.
Yep. Next up, Dan dropping one of his 12 water types for Thunderous.
Yeah.
Just joking. Dan has a like a rain core, but Suicune just wasn't doing anything.
Yeah.
Other than maybe Tailwind support, but I don't think he really needs it. And Thunderous, I think, is going to be kind of a long-term plan. Don't be surprised if you see him make other transactions, but also this kind of just gives him a rising voltage spammer. So
Yeah. I think that's pretty much it. And don't underestimate Thunderous. It hits insanely hard. I mean, it's got like a 145 special attack.
Yep.
It's pretty scary, but it is frail, and it's got a lower speed too. So you can kind of also do stuff with that.
Yep. Hunter, 9 tails for Slowbro. One of you guys can take this one.
I'll let Matt go.
I think this is just a straight up upgrade. It's like we talked about in the last video. I don't really know what Ninetales was doing on his team. Slowbro gives him a little bit, makes his team a little bit more three-dimensional. It gives him another Trick Room setter that can actually potentially do some stuff offensively instead of just relying on Dusclops to set up Trick Room for the horse. I think it's a good upgrade. It gets rid of something that didn't really belong and adds something to a mode that he already has.
Yeah, and it's a sweeper that's not weak to fire.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, and also like I just think Slowbro is a great mon. It actually put in a ton of work last season. On the team it was on. And really solid mon. I think it's a significant upgrade from Tails on this comp. So, and I think Hunter's going to continue making transactions over the course of the season. I don't done or anything.
Yeah, no, I don't either. And then lastly, we have Toxic Slurpuff for Rhydon. He needed a ground type, and Lightning Rod looks really good next to Moltres. So I think that's
Slurpuff
actually
was not
it.
doing anything on that comp. So
No. Matt, he tried trading that to you, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. I wasn't particularly interested, especially given what he wanted. So.
No, last season we seen Slurpuff do some work with Riolu, but no.
Yeah, you need to have some kind of bullet punch happen, I think, in doubles. Belly Drum's just not consistent enough. Yeah, I like the transactions this week. I think they're all really good. I also think it's telling that we only have 5 people making transactions at all.
Mm-hmm.
I think that a lot of people are actually pretty happy and comfortable with their teams from what I've been talking when I've been talking with the coaches. And I think too that since it's week 1, a lot of your holes aren't going to be very apparent like the first week. So I wouldn't be shocked if we either see very few to almost no transactions this season compared to last. And I also think the teams are just a lot more balanced this season overall. I think that a lot of people have a lot less make transactions, frankly.
Yep, same. And since last season was an open draft, so it did allow you to do a couple more changes than normal. So the tier list is kind of limiting, but I think it also made the teams, like you said, a little bit more balanced. So
yeah,
that's it from me. If you guys have anything else to say, go right ahead.
I think I'm good.
Great week 1, everybody. Looking forward to the following weeks. We got 7 more to go.
Yep. All right. I will see y'all in the next one. Peace.